For decades, news organizations have measured success largely through reach, more readers, more viewers, more page views, more scale. But what if that model is no longer enough? A groundbreaking new global study from FT Strategies, conducted in partnership with WAN-IFRA and supported by ArcXP, surveyed over 400 newsroom leaders across 86 countries to better understand how newsrooms are adapting to a rapidly changing media landscape. And the findings are both fascinating and, in some cases, unsettling. Audience engagement has emerged as journalism's top priority, yet only a third of the newsrooms have aligned their strategy with daily operations. Meanwhile, reporters spend far more time producing content than building community, and AI's biggest barriers remain cultural, not technical. Hi, I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. This, of course, is E&P Reports, our weekly vodcast series that explores the people, ideas, and issues shaping the future of news publishing. Joining me today are two of the principal voices behind this landmark study. Stig, Kirk, Ørskov. I have you as CEO of WAN-IFRA, of course, the World Association of News Publishers. And I have to say, Stig, I am honored to have you on this program. You're one of the industry's most respected advocates for innovation, sustainability, and newsroom transformation. I hope I have your last name correct. Ørskov, is that correct, sir?
Yeah, you actually pronounced it precisely as it should be pronounced. Fantastic.
I guess I get a gold star this morning. And yeah. And joining us on the panel is the nerd that looked at all the numbers. I think Lamberto is that correct? Lamberto Lambertini, who we were chatting offline before the episode, comes from the Amalfi Coast, Napoli originally. You live in London, right? You're the insights manager at FT Strategies and a lead researcher on the future of newsrooms. Is that correct, sir?
All correct. I think if you get my first name right, you'll get the second one right. So you nailed it.
Well, we're gonna when we come back, we're gonna explore if the traditional newsroom playbook is becoming virtually obsolete. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes two parts: reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
Lamberto, let's start with you, the nerd. You spent months buried in data. Of all the findings in this study, what surprised you the most, sir?
I think you set it up perfectly at the beginning. The amount of time journalists are still putting in production was quite astonishing, given the idea that AI can help with production, the idea that community is now the core of how we can differentiate ourselves. I think, with more than 30% of a week's time spent on production, how much time does a journalist actually have to talk to journalists, to their audience, to find stories? I think we're going into a world where we'll need to think about how structurally and time-wise we can give journalists more time to think about engaging post-production and thinking of original stories at the beginning. That was really, really striking from the data.
Stig, let's come off the runway and get up to about 20,000 feet. WAN-IFRA works with publishers all over the world. Why was this study important to undertake right now, sir?
I mean, if you look at the most successful media companies this year, that's the media companies with the best understanding of their audience. That's the media companies that really, really respect the raw data of audience behavior. They're the most successful. We can see that all over. I come from a background as the CEO of one of the most successful Danish media companies, and we've been doing, with a bit of humble approach. I think I dare say that we've been quite successful in developing the digital subscription models, and they are based on really deep understanding of your audience. But even though that is, has been true for a lot of years, and Lamberto just mentioned that as well, we haven't seen newsroom behavior or newsroom organization changing and actually reflecting on that knowledge that is what really drives deep audience engagement, and by that way also drives successful subscription models.
We have debates on this show about, and I'm going to stay with you on this, Stig, because you just said something that we report on. Looking at the data is important, but does that drive editorial decision-making or not? I want to get your opinion on this. We even had Marty Barron on this program, you might know, who spent time at the Washington Post, who did not want to look at data. He kind of said that because I want my editorial team to do a job without worrying about audience behavior, just go get the story. Where do you, sir, you just said your company was successful. Is there a parallel here? Do you want your newsrooms to see audience data when they're chasing news, sir?
Definitely. And we've been doing that for a lot of years, sharing the data about how the user behaves, how much they engage with each story. We've been talking about that. We're not incentivizing the newsroom on it, but I think we have the data. Why should we not be transparent about it? I mean, journalism is about, getting people to access the truth. So let's, reveal the truth about our audience behavior, because I think that gives us the opportunity to really reflect on what engages our audiences, what is relevant to them. But of course, we must never compromise the editorial independency, the editorial integrity. That has to stay in the newsroom. A lot of the reporting we're doing, especially the investigative reporting, has to really, I think, be protected from the outside. But on the other hand side, I think, and this might be controversial, I think we also sometimes need to be less protective around the newsroom. Sometimes we sort of hide the truth for them because we are afraid to compromise the editorial integrity. And I think actually you're compromising sort of, the truth, because why shouldn't the journalist not be just as eager to learn what the audience are doing and what their interests are, in order to serve them?
Lamberto, you are nodding your head. I want to say that to our audience that's listening on Spotify, Apple, or iHeart, or what have you. And this circles back to the report, doesn't it? One of the most striking findings I saw was 1/3 of newsrooms have strong alignment between strategy and day-to-day editorial decisions. That means 2/3 don't. How do you reveal that? What does that say to you, sir?
I think it exemplifies exactly what Stig just spoke about. The idea that we have to shield the newsroom from our strategic priorities because it might change their view about what stories they can do or not is a wrong approach, especially now where that connection is so important for us to even just reach audiences and get them to subscribe. So I think that speaks exactly to the idea that a closer connections with whatever role that might be that creates that bridge between commercial and editorial actually helps you understand, take more time to write this story. We have the audience, or release this quicker, or do this type of in-depth look based on data. And one point I wanted to add to Stig is, you talk to editor-in-chiefs and they always talk about how mails, literal physical mails in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s were so important for them to understand what they were getting wrong or right, because they got that feedback from their data. It's much more than just looking at what are the page views, but it's finding ways so that comments or an engagement metric can make its way to an editor so they understand this story doesn't have a lot of page views, but people who are on it love it. How can I do more of this? What can I do beyond that? That's the other type of data that we often overlook.
Well, okay, but and full disclosure, Lamberto, you work not for the Financial Times, you work for a division of the Financial Times called FT Strategies, which is a huge supporter of E&P. You guys are one of our marketing partners, and you issue tremendous papers. And this is an editorial show, you're not paying for this time. But I got to ask you, FT Strategies is hired by some of the most prestigious media companies in the world for advice. So, Lamberto, here's the question. Why are so many organizations still operating reactively instead of strategically, in your opinion? And how do you get that change?
I think this speaks to maybe one of the slides that had the most impact at the WAN-IFRA conference, which is that slide around the new strategy roles that are emerging in newsrooms. We hear all the time about a new chief subscription officer or things like that, but what are those more strategic roles that are being embedded in newsrooms, whether that is a newsroom engineering, someone who can think about AI tools at the very journalist level, all the way to the audience engagement types role that can bring that connection between commercial and editorial. These roles are still massively underdeveloped. Our survey finds that only 10% of the newsrooms of our respondents have this type of role. That needs to massively increase if we want newsrooms to connect strategic priorities with their day-to-day coverage. If they want to connect the ability to spend a little less time on production and uncovering new stories or engaging with audiences, we will need those types of skills and roles much more in newsrooms.
All right, Stig, you were in that conference when that slide was displayed, and you had an audience there of world publishers. What advice do you give to an organization that does not realize that reach and relevance can work hand in hand? How do you get that change from a publisher, Stig?
I mean, my first advice will always be share the data. I have not met a single journalist who's not really deeply interested in how her or she's story engage the audience. And I think it's really, really important here to actually do as you do here, Mike. Say it's both reach and it's engagement, because the engagement part is the real, attractive value these years. It's not about page views. It's about, how long do you stay with the article? How much do you share it? How much do you comment on it? That's what really is important in terms of actually creating value with the audience. And if you share the data with a newsroom, I tell you, the journalists, they are just like really intensely interested in getting that knowledge, because as a journalist, I mean, you don't want to, do your storytelling for nobody. We really like, to do something that's relevant, that engages people, that it really attracts people. So my first advice and my second advice and my third advice is like, share the data, talk about the data, qualify the data as well. It's not just about page views. That's just, an old prejudice about, data. Data is about really understanding what engages your audience.
Lamberto, everybody talks about AI. Every other story we report on has AI in it. What about the AI, I guess, adaptation in the news industry? What did this study reveal about true use of AI globally by newsrooms today?
I think it revealed that newsrooms are quite ahead in terms of automation and thinking of ways that they can speed up simple tasks that free up time. A lot of newsrooms are doing this across the world. I think what it also revealed is that the most forward-thinking ones are thinking about how AI applies to news gathering. So thinking, again, this is where a strategic role like a head of newsroom engineering might be super helpful. Finding ways to query a series on YouTube from specific creators to see whether certain words are showing up to preempt a story, or plug into community announcements at a public government. Those little things, what types of tools we can use to uncover stories, those are where the really forward-thinking newsrooms are going. And I think it's also connecting us to the power of local news a lot. A lot of the fear is that local news is disappearing, that local publishers are moving away, and that big generalist papers can't focus on a city. Well, this is where hopefully AI can help one person who might be covering London, for example, for a paper. That might help them uncover more stories, think about ways that can engage a local population. I think there is where the opportunity for AI really stands out, and not everyone has yet to capture. And then lastly, as you said in the intro, it's kind of reassuring to see that it's not technical barriers. Newsrooms and journalists, some have incredible experience in building up an agent or thinking of some type of AI application. What stuff is they might get pushback on the use case they're doing, or they might not have the marketing budget to showcase a new story using AI in a very different way. So in a way, that's reassuring. There are the technical skills, but in a way, again, it goes to the point of alignment is still lacking. And how can we use AI to grow that?
All right, so let me stay with you, and then I'm going to ask Stig the final question. And maybe this dovetails what you just said, but a number of J schools use this show in some of their classes. You know, if there's a certain topic, imagine now that you're talking to J school students around the world. What skills should they have today so they can be part of a successful news operation for the decades to come, based on your knowledge in this report and beyond from all the work you do at FT Strategies?
This is a great question. I think our board kept saying that it's very important that those human skills are still there. The ability to be curious. I know these might sound soft skills, but the ability to curious, the ability to work with leadership and to be collaborative are not gone. Those are key aspects of a future journalist. But there are, more technical skills, whether that's computational journalism or OSINT journalism, that are increasingly interesting for especially investigative-led newspapers. Those skills are in demand. Those skills can help really move a newsroom away from just an article to a brand new type of storytelling experience. So that's quite strong. And then, unfortunately, and I can't believe we've gone this far without talking about creators, there is a sense that whatever that might mean for you, the ability to present in different ways, the ability to be clipped from a podcast, the ability to really stand out in audio and video formats is a skill that is really looked after. A lot of newsrooms are trying to upskill internally, and some are doing successful, but that is a skill that is increasingly being asked from journalists.
I would really like to add something to the question you just asked before.
Okay.
The core skills. I would like to quote one of our members, an editor-in-chief of the biggest newspaper and news media in Finland called Sanoma. She said that she doesn't consider writing to be a core skill for journalists going forward. And I think that's worth reflecting on. So writing is not going to be a core skill for a journalist. Imagine you're saying that 10 years ago, people would just saying you're crazy. But I think that's really instructive in order to understand what do you do then need to do. You need, as you said, to train your skills as a reporter, original reporter. What can you do as a human that AI is not that good at? You can meet people, talk to them, observe them. You can go out of the newsroom, do original reporting. You can, build a stronger presence as an individual. So yeah, in many ways, I'm hopeful because I think AI might actually make the value of real human-made journalism even bigger, because there's so much we can do, and I think we actually might become, get more clarity about where do we actually build value in this connection with our audience, and in order to understand that, once again, you need to understand and invest time in understanding your audience, also seen from the perspective of the newsroom.
Stig, my biggest challenge whenever I edit up these episodes is finding a pull quote. You already gave it to me. You made my life easier. Thank you, sir. Stig Kirk Ørskov, CEO of WAN-IFRA, the World Association of News Publishers, Lamberto Lambertini, I said that correct, Insights Manager at FT Strategies. Both you gentlemen, thank you for sharing the report. Thank you for sharing your insights, and more importantly, thank you for exploring this industry and letting us know where sustainability will come from and what the future looks like. We really appreciate your time.
I appreciate being a part of it.